Welcome to the Pull the Chute podcast with Jeff and Jana. This is our weekly venture into the world of small to medium-sized businesses and the entrepreneurial spirit that drives success.
So our goal here is to help you grow and to be the best you can be, both in business and personally. To do that, we identify and we discuss topics that will hopefully help you as you work to build a successful business.
We also interview business owners and executives. It's our hope that you may be able to gain insight on ways to help you be a better leader and provide a better culture for your people.
Our mission here is to help you pull the chute once a week to work on your business instead of always working in your business.
So we hope you find these discussions insightful, helpful, and useful.
And thanks for your support. We hope you enjoy today's podcast.
Well, welcome everyone to the Pull the Chute podcast with Jeff and Jana. As always, we are so excited that you are here. Good afternoon, Jana. How are you doing today?
I am good.
Awesome.
Chilly here in Nashville today, so I'm liking that as we move into the colder months.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard it's like in the 40s down there. It's like cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, we woke up to 19 degrees in Chicago today. And our guest is from Nova Scotia, so I don't even know how cold it is up there.
Oh my God, Ryan. Woo!
It's in the 50s. It's not as bad. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
dang.
you're doing
Yes,
great.
yeah.
I love it.
Strangely.
I love it. Yeah, right. That is crazy. So Ryan Chute, you're with us. Thanks for being on the show. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you. I'm very grateful. Appreciate it.
So Ryan, do us a favor, as we like to do. You can do a much better job than we can. Tell us a little bit about you, and then how'd you get to where you're at today?
Today I'm blessed to run an 8-figure agency with the Wizard of Ads. I'm a subset within the Wizard of Ads. I focus on professional services and home services. I came from the sales and marketing world for the last 30 years. I've been building businesses and consulting businesses. My last job before this was in Australasia, just building out that area as part of a marketing and sales strategy and growing up a big business with the automotive industry.
Wow.
So I've had a chance to really travel a lot. I've been all over the place and seen a lot of things and learned a lot of stuff, but it wasn't always that way. I started off in a retail environment. It was very transactional. It was very at times toxic and lots of weaponized fear, shame, and guilt and questionable decision making going on, and the stuff. And I mimicked that. I struggled for a long time with leadership versus management. I was one heck of a manager and was able to really get the job done, but I was just a bad boss. And at one point I'd gotten fired for just being general bad behavior. And
Oh, wow.
in a place where I'd actually had profound success. We'd been one of the largest succeeding stores within the group, and results were across the board stellar. But I was missing that human component, and that's what really had me turn around and think, what do I need to do to make that change? So as things evolved and changed over the years, I've had the opportunity to meet Roy, and Roy is the Wizard of Ads. He is the guy who started it all in Austin, Texas, and he wrote 3 books: The Wizard of Ads, Magical Worlds of the Wizard of Ads, and The Secret Formulas of the Wizard of Ads. All became New York Times bestsellers, Wall Street Journal's Book of the Year. And he opened up a not-for-profit school in Austin, Texas called the Wizard Academy before J.K. Rowling's was all in even a thing. And we don't teach magic or potions or herbology, but we do learn how to communicate as small business owners, as marketers, as ad writers.
Love it.
And in 2015, I started a class with him, and it changed my life. I'd grown up transactional and did pretty darn good with it. So when I shifted over to this relational kind of thinking, I realized, holy cow, there's this whole universe above me that I hadn't even considered yet. And so I just kept on taking classes for 2 years, just incessantly, just pouring all of myself into and learning everything that I do as I do. I'm a bit of a go deep kind of person. And he invited me to be a partner in 2017. And
That's great.
I thought I was going to be a sales trainer, but COVID and other industry challenges like leadership, or the shortcomings of leadership, the friction that was built in leadership, had me shift gears, and I started selling the Wizard of Ads service. But then really tapping into the whole idea of how do we remove friction from the operation so that we can make our marketing perform faster, more profitably. And that's really kind of my life today is uh, strategy. And I do sell the Wizard of Ads services for predominantly home services and professional services, the ugly duckling businesses that are externally triggered grudge purchases. No one
Mhm.
wants to buy them, but they have to be bought. And there's a particular challenge in that I quite like. That it's we've cracked the code on it, and we can make a huge difference. And that's what we're able to do today is really make a difference by elevating the brands of businesses to take them from small business to household names.
So do you have any kind of a graphic arts or art background at all, Ryan? I mean, how does that work? When you go into a new business, let's say, and you're
Yeah.
branding them or rebranding them, are you doing everything from the actual visual branding all the way to their messaging to, you
Yeah.
to growth and scale and all of that?
Yeah, like exactly. Most people do mistake branding for the logos and the truck wraps and the websites and the colors.
Hmm.
And branding is actually the story, the bond
Right,
that you
right.
have with your business. And
Absolutely.
and then all of those other things, there's actually 12 different ways that we can affect the perceptions of a person.
Hmm.
We start to pay attention to those different layers and figure out how can we make it that much easier, better, remove friction, add tension, create an environment where people feel something about your business. And that really starts with the words that you use, and not just in the advertising that you do, but in the sales training and the culture that you develop. What I came to discover early on that I really just kind of sunk my teeth into was kind of the the catalyst for me was something that another one of the partners said, Ray Sagrin, who said there's culture and there's story and there's experience. And when you think of the story, the advertising, the marketing messages that you hear, those are all informed by what your employee experience is. You know,
Hmm.
is it good? Are they betraying themselves? Are they being honest with themselves? Do they feel good about that? Do they step in and deliver an extraordinary buying experience because they feel right about your business? Or is there something stopping them? And then there's the buying experience itself, and it's the buying experience and the employee experience that really make up what your brand is
Hmm.
in every way, whether you like it or not, frankly,
Yes, yes.
because sometimes people are like, why can't I find any employees? Or why don't I have enough customers? Or well, I need more leads, but they're not doing the things necessary to have a brand worth talking about or to to keep going. One of the best things that Roy ever said to me was sometimes a company doesn't do very good because they don't know your business, and other times they don't do very well because they do.
Do know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So do you have a process then that you put, obviously, that you, when you come into a
Yeah.
business, like you said, you mentioned the 12 different ways or the 12 steps. Is this something that that is like a process that's written down, that kind of thing? Do you, or is it more organic where you interview the people or you kind of get into the guts of the business and then figure it out from there? Which probably so, because yeah, we all know that business is really communication driven. So
It is, it really is, you know, and people are the wild card, right? It's in any
yes.
business, they're factoring for about 90% of it. Whatever box you sell is just the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
It is all communication. And there's a couple, I mean, we do just an astounding amount of things. The things that they taught at the school at Wizard
Mhm.
Academy just scrape the surface of what you learn when you now get the all the case studies and the actual strategic um, uh, information that Roy shares with us as partners, and as partners sharing it with other partners. There's 80 of us around the world now, so we have a lot of data to work off of.
Mm.
And yeah, the big thing that we start with is the exact opposite of where most people start. Most people start at the symptom. They're starting at the channel. They're starting to try to figure out their business with, where do I advertise? Do I go on Google? Do I run paid ads? Do I do social media posts?
Mhm.
And And while those are all very important questions, they're actually the last question to ask. The first one being, of course, what am I trying to achieve, and how am I going to achieve it with the resources that I have at my disposal? So then we look at the things that we have at our disposal, and sometimes they're surprising. They're hidden gems that people don't even realize are good about their business because they're buried in a whole haystack of things that everyone would say, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
There's just a whole bunch of nonsense there that is table stakes. It's the same thing that
Right.
everyone has already heard 100 times, and you could literally just replace that person's name with anyone else's name, and they would say, "Me too." That's exactly what we all say.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
getting past that and finding that one big thing, that's where the magic happens. And then leaning into it as a symbol of what you stand for, be it empathy, competence, or convenience,
Mhm.
exclusivity, something that elevates identity, or fulfills or resolves another pain that we can solve.
Mhm. That's great. That's interesting.
So I want to jump back, if you don't mind. You talked about the fact that you were a terrible boss. And you actually
Yeah.
got fired for being a terrible boss
I
because you were
sure
a
did.
bad leader. You were a manager, but not a leader, which leadership is near and dear to our heart.
Yes.
It's one
Yes.
of the things that we do. So talk to us about that journey a little bit. And what was the hardest thing you had to learn? What are some really important things that you've learned, and how do you think you've changed? I know I just laid a lot on you. Sorry. How do you think you've changed, and to this better leader?
Well, and I think of it as a journey, and I had to put a reconciliation on the journey and the destination. So I set the destination as death, and everything leading up to it is the journey.
Okay.
So, so
That's
if
pretty
we
typical, I think, right?
right, if
Yeah.
we yeah, right. So if we can just stack hands that there is no destination, and once we get there, we've done everything that we're going to be able to do, that everything is the journey, and that we're always learning. And I certainly am. I certainly make my mistakes today, but I learned a bunch of things. First and foremost, I started off by mirroring and mimicking, right? Mirror neurons, the things that we
Mhm.
look at,
Mhm.
and copycat things. I was just doing what I saw. I mimicked what I knew to be true. And what I discovered about that was that I got compliance. It was is easy enough to get somebody to do what you want them to do when you're um, violent enough with your communication.
Mhm.
But what I didn't understand at the time was that compliance only leads to one thing: defiance.
Mhm.
So all I was getting was people who were quitting on me 6 weeks before I knew they were out the door, if it took that long. And that didn't solve any problems. There was this huge cost of turnover. There was certainly a different mood. I wasn't getting the most out of my people. Was I squeezing the most out? Sure. Was I um, um, getting a result in the short term through uh, my what I've come to learn is my deep desire to fill my dopamine bucket.
Yes.
Uh, you
That's
know,
a great way to put it. We got to remember
right,
that, Jeff.
Yeah, right.
right.
On my
Well,
dopamine bucket.
well,
Hmm.
only in the last few years did I learn that dopamine is the only thing that anyone is addicted to, that
Hmm.
all of the addictions that we have are the addiction to the dopamine that we get from those addictions. And what that taught me was is I have to pay attention to my dopamine now. About third week of August, just one week before my last birthday, I learned that I have ADHD. I went through all of the adult assessments, which is interesting process when you're my age, and
Yeah.
even trying to convince someone to do it with you. And I reflected back in my life. I looked at my childhood. I looked at my growing up and being in business, and realizing I have this severe lack and urgency of dopamine, and really want to chase it. And that's
Hmm.
why I was a good manager. I was able to outwork people to get that feeling. But I also got that feeling from getting compliance, and I also got that feeling from closing a sale, and I had all of the things that fed me the way that they shouldn't, and in a way that I could have made better choices had I known. So
Hmm.
um, hindsight's 2020, and all I can do is reflect on where I am today, and understand, you know what, I can do better. and that it's my responsibility if I'm going to be or expect myself to be in any leadership position
Right.
to take responsibility. So that the other side of that coin, keeping it in, of course, the simplest of terms, because it's not this simple, but it's where simplicity starts. Coping is another big thing that I learned
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
And we have to cope as leaders too, right? If you're the boss, you're just trying to cope with life, right? Just like your employees are trying to cope with life, and your kid and your wife and everyone else. Now, it's not all uh, uh, rain clouds and thunderstorms. It's certainly lots of good stuff in life, but we all generally operate off of the construct of coping, right? So we
Mhm.
have these shortcuts that we create in our brains. Well, the second most important chemical besides dopamine is oxytocin. And
Mhm.
that led me down a rabbit hole of branding, of sales, of employee engagement, of culture, of leadership. And oxytocin is the loyalty chemical, the molecule of loyalty, the molecule of love, of bonding, of connection. And when I realized that these were two of the most prolific chemicals to pay attention to in my actions, I now understood the ingredients that made up whether or not I was going to be successful or not, and how I could just trigger different chemical reactions based off of the research taught us. So
That's so
things,
interesting.
it's
Yeah.
fast. It really is a rabbit hole, because we've all kind of superficially touched into the bits and pieces of psychology, but
Mhm. Mhm.
every bit of psychology is driven by biology. So to have gone down the rabbit holes and then to start cross um, marrying these disciplines together, and realizing we don't have the full equation until we really do understand a multiple of disciplines that are getting us there, from the sociological disciplines, the
Mhm.
anthropological, the biology, the psychology, all of the things that are driving us as tribes, as groups of people, as individuals, and our smaller, tighter units. And then what's going on in ourself? Because an awful lot of the time, us silly boys are spending a lot of time trying to ignore all those feelings and that past traumas and those
Mhm.
those life experiences that bring us to where we are, which studies show about half of it is nurture and half of it is nature,
Yes.
and doesn't matter which study you get to, they all just kind of come out to about the same, half and half. So can we blame our past ancestors? Yes, both good and bad.
Right.
But we also have to take equal as much responsibility for ourselves, to take care of ourselves, and give ourselves permission as
Right.
if I can be so bold as to say, old white men. I
Yes.
certainly,
Yes.
I identify as an old white man at this stage in
I
my
was just gonna
life.
say, who you calling
That's right.
old?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Me,
Well,
just
I
me.
do.
Okay.
I do see the change that, and Jeff and I have talked about this a little bit with business, just with coaches and business people in general. About 10 years, 8 to 10 years ago, it kind of shifted, in my opinion, to you've got to kind of have a of service mentality, or a customer service kind of a mentality, a trusted advisor, I'm going to go that extra 10%. And that's what kind of, in my opinion, that's what's going to separate you to being a good business person, a good business professional, whether it is a worker bee, a CEO, a leader, or a coach. That idea that I've got to be empathetic, I've got to listen,
Mhm,
and I've got to understand who I'm talking to and where they fit in the generational and sociological, bucket, and all of
mhm.
that, in order to really understand how to help them and
Yep,
their business. So I think that
100%.
is, I think that is a good thing. I love that you specified oxytocin, because we've talked a lot about how giving back, and why we feel as humans, we feel so good when we do something charitable, or when we give back, or when we help somebody, or somebody says to us, "Oh my God, you've helped me so much," or "I didn't even think of it that way, and I can't tell you how much that means to me." Whatever the business, is. It's
Right.
very interesting. It's very interesting how, as a human, that is a real important part of us, to make us feel good and to keep us well-rounded. And it is only recently kind of been introduced in the business world, in my opinion, maybe the last 10, 15 years. Think about
Absolutely.
how we built business in America back in the 20s and 30s and the industrial age, and all of this growth was always about, you're going to do it my way, or we have a process,
Yeah.
and if you don't meet those standards, then you're out of here. It's all about the dollar and the bottom line and how
Mhm.
fast can you do it. And that has obviously not worked out for us, you know?
Well, the
So,
Gallup polls certainly show that through productivity and
yes.
profitability measurements over the last 40 plus years. You know, it's funny. I wear these three wristbands. One of them's for my business, my home service business that I run. But one of them is the orange one, and it's helping people win in a trustworthy and grateful manner.
Mhm.
About 6 years ago, as I was doing my research, I started to kind of just pull themes in from what I often made fun of, the mission statements, the core values, the
Mhm.
visions, the purpose, all of this stuff that you see on websites and good companies, bad companies. I just pulled them all together and I just started putting them into themes. And those themes eventually got down into three buckets. The three buckets are helping people win is a big
Mhm.
thematic bucket,
Mhm.
being trustworthy, the action of being trustworthy, and then finally and surprisingly was living gratefully. A friend of mine
Good.
named,
Yep.
yeah. So Steve Foran is a friend of mine and an author of Surviving to Thriving, the 10 Laws of Grateful Leadership, and has
Mhm.
a consulting business that talks about that. And he put me on this journey, and I unexpectedly went down this rabbit hole and realized that it is indeed gratitude that helps us remove the ego from the equation, that
Mhm.
brings humility into the equation, that allows us to think about abundance in a different way. Uh, uh, Ultimately, one of the interesting studies that came out of that was the Starbucks study, where um, a group of people were sent into Starbucks with a gift card saying, "Oh, go buy yourself a coffee." They'd come out and they'd say, out of 1 to 10, where would you rate yourself for happiness right now? You got this free coffee. And they'd give a rating. And then they did the exact same thing, but with the one change being, go in and give this card to somebody to get a coffee. And that simple gesture raised up the happiness level. And it wasn't because it made them happy. They didn't get the coffee out of it.
Right.
It raised it up because they were able to make somebody feel grateful, and that made them feel grateful. Gratitude has a power that we are just starting to tap into and understand at a level that changes the narrative around how we treat our customers, by
Hmm.
how we treat our employees,
Mhm.
because our employees are going to be the ones treating our customers right.
That's
And
right.
let's all agree that most companies don't get it right. Like,
Oh, I
Oh
agree.
no, I'm way in that boat.
Yeah,
yeah,
we all agree to that.
right. And therein lies the problem, but therein lies the opportunity for us to simplify the narrative to leadership, to agree on a simple standard set of terms, to disband a lot of these traditional models around mission statements and purpose and vision, and to reframe them into actually what they are, and then just agree that these are what they are. So that's the road I'm walking down as I help market people's
Yeah, I
businesses.
love it.
We can't just stop at the radio ads or the pay per clicks. We have to keep going into getting rid of the friction that's in the rest of the business, from comp plans to sales process to how we curate our inventory and our prices to what we deliver,
Yeah,
not just to satisfy a customer. Hey, here's what we said that we were going to do. Cool, that's what we call satisfaction. But if you're just getting out there to satisfy a customer, are you doing enough today? And the answer is probably not.
yeah, yeah,
But operationally, if we baked in something that we knew we were going to do and then surprised a customer with, what we're doing is we're actually shooting oxytocin into their brain,
Yeah.
right? And then what if we just did that with our employees too,
yep,
right? Like that year-long bonus that Daniel Pink has already shown us does nothing to
Yeah.
move the performance meter. What if we were to instead do a now that reward instead of an if then reward? And now that you've done this, I just want you guys to know you did an amazing job. You crushed it. You were great on time and materials. We have extra money left over and it's yours. Here you go. Now that
yeah,
you've done this, you're getting this reward. Boom, oxytocin,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
This is how we tactically shift it into a better leadership model, into a better culture model, into a better buying experience. And man, that makes for one heck of a brand.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. You're singing the song. My tagline for Pull the Chute is "Grow your people, grow your company." Because I am a firm believer that if we take care of our people are going to take care of us, right? And that's what's going to grow the business. Because they're,
Yeah.
instead of it, this is your company. This is my company too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. That famous line there too. So,
Yeah.
And I get the gratitude thing too. I just want to share a funny story because you're absolutely right. It's in there. So my wife and I, for our anniversary every year, we go out to dinner. And if we're lucky enough, we find a younger couple that is having dinner, and we will silently buy their dinner
Hi, Jeff. That's so
and
cool.
not tell them. And it is the
Yeah.
coolest thing to watch them look around and go, who,
Right.
who,
That's so cool.
and we just have this whole conversation so that we don't, they don't think it's us, right? We're not staring at them or anything like that. The one year we were down in Florida, we did that in Pensacola, and the girl was literally putting out coupons to pay for the dinner.
Yeah.
And the waiter goes, "I'm sorry, your dinner's been paid for already." And she's like, "What?" And she literally started crying. We're like, well, "That was worth every penny, right?" Because
penny.
that's that oxytocin, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
We felt so grateful to be able to do that.
Yeah.
For one, but to be able to give something back, paid forward in a sense, all that. You're right though. It just nails it. It's so fun to be able to do that. We love that. It's
What a beautiful thing, and it's not there for the fame. It's not there for the shoving it into the, your social media, like, look at how awesome I am stuff. One of our clients, he had been very quietly replacing people's systems, an HVAC company in Jacksonville, Florida, for a number of years, and he'd probably done 7 or 8 of them, and he'd never said anything. It's never been on social media. He'd never be that guy. And that's why I think the world of this guy, frankly, and I think the world of him because he got found out. The person who had been calling them up and getting the service done, the executive directors came up to him and said, "You're Jason Bueller, aren't you?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah." Um, you can't you will never know how much of a difference you've made in so many people's lives. And he goes, "Oh, what are you talking about? I'm an executive director for this and that, and you've done all this for us." And it was just one of those moments that I sat as Jason was telling us in confidence, and I get chills, of the kind of man uh, that person is, and how he takes care of his employees and his customers, and even people who can't afford his services but still need his services. He didn't even think twice of it. It was just instantly done, and I've got just an astounding amount of respect for a human being that is able to proactively take that position. And he's certainly blessed. He's an incredibly successful businessman, and didn't feel the pain of it, and he wasn't in that survival thinking, which stops us from doing that. But he wouldn't hesitate. Another is my media buyer. Astounding media buyer, buys nationally for us, does an amazing job, and we're at a client's uncovery session, and we're just having the morning breakfast before we go see the client for the day. And this man's got like a radar in his head. He sees a lady who he knows to be from the streets, in a not a good place, and she's eating her breakfast, and before she even takes out her wallet, which she was taking out as after it was already resolved, that she's counting loose change, like she's just trying to scrounge it to kind of get to it. And he had already paid for her breakfast, and it was like he was so subtle about it, so classy about it, and just so astoundingly loving. It didn't even phase him for him to have done that in a split second.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of people who, they're not the bosses of anything. What Jason is, and Kyle really isn't. He's an important team member, but he's absolutely a leader, right? And it's because he thinks that way. Leadership isn't about your title. It's so much about your disposition in life and how you take the lead in life.
Well, and we always tell people, look, the first thing I teach people is it's not about you.
Yeah.
If we can get you to understand that, you're going to go, forever. I mean, it's just, that's the tough part about leadership is it's not about you.
Mhm.
I've always struggled with the term servant leadership. I'm like, there's no such thing as servant leadership. Serving others is leadership.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Yeah.
It's like saying leadership. It's
Yeah,
like
right.
stop. You don't need to say it twice.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal for me because I always saw leadership as these traits and attributes of a person, all of the fluffy duck stuff that you hear people putting out
Right.
there that
Mm.
aspire to be dusty words on a wall
Yeah.
that make you feel like you're doing something, when in fact none of that stuff matters. What
Right.
actually matters is that if people are the wild card and they represent 80% of our business and our life, frankly, our kids, our spouses, our next door neighbors, our community
Mhm.
members, then we have to conduct ourselves in a way that um, takes our own personal entitlement out of the equation. And
Yeah.
that's not easy when you're in survival mode. It's not easy when you're trying to make payroll or cover the mortgage. That's it's tough, right?
Yeah.
But it's also the thing that is getting in your way from getting to the bigger spot. That's a friction point that we can, once addressed and once reconciled through some basic simple coping mechanisms, you can make a big difference on how
Yeah.
you move forward.
Great. I agree. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thanks for sharing your journey. And you're still on the journey. We know that, as we all are. But thanks for sharing your story, maybe is the better word for you. But boy, what a transformation for you. You got to feel pretty amazing about where you're at today.
It
Yes.
is. It's exciting. I can't wait for what's next.
Awesome.
That's great.
Ryan, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Three easy ways. Wizard Ryan Chute is my handles on all social medias. You can see my home services page and professional services page. Wizardofads.services is our niche page for our marketing services. And for my content personally, it's ryanchute.com.
Cool. Well, thank you so much,
Great.
Ryan. Thank you for being on the show. To all our listeners out there, thank you for participating with us and for listening and supporting us. We love it so much. Keep the emails coming. We always enjoy those as well. Until the next time, stay safe and be healthy.